What's up again, my friends? Welcome back to Carpo's channel. Shit, man. It's August 10th, 2020. I've been meaning to make a video for a couple of days, and to be perfectly honest, it's becoming harder and harder to even want to make a video. I sit down and I get my phone ready now because my computer died, so I can't edit any videos or do anything. Not that I ever did before, but I'll be honest, it's been rough lately. My mental state has come and gone as far as having positive or defeatist thoughts about the future of mankind in general, I guess, but it's, I don't know, there's too many things that are too distracting. When I made videos lately, I tend to ramble, like always, but I have this different. I'm slowly starting to adjust some of my thought patterns, and I don't know. I just like to share a few of the thoughts that I've had lately with you all, for what it's worth. And yesterday was actually the video I was going to make. I was going to read this book, which is The Wisdom of Jerry Garcia, and it's a short little book with little quotes in here. One of them says, "Don't worry, be happy. That's it. That's the best thing I've ever heard." Another one says, "I indulge myself." So, it's just little random quotes. But yesterday was the 25th anniversary of the day Jerry Garcia died. And it got me thinking about those times in my life. And just, I remember that day very distinctly because I was a deadhead, back in '95. And I was expecting to go to the tour that year and the next year and the next year. And anyhow, this isn't about the dead, but I just thought I would mention that in passing. Really, I wanted to talk about creativity and openness to experience and yoga and karma and all these things, but I don't know how to tie them together. So I'm just going to go with the first thought that I had earlier, which was about, you may remember the old saying, there's two things you never talk about in the workplace: politics and religion. And because it always brings an argument, right? Well, I realized something. It was just kind of this epiphany that hit me. I realized that there's been a new one added to that list, and it's science. And I thought of how interesting that is. I guess that's nothing new, really. If you look back in history, science has always been ridiculed, just like religion, just like various politics. But we have tolerated each other, living next door to one another, with completely different beliefs. For example, in a deity, does God exist or not exist? People will shake hands, they will smile, they will get along, even though their belief in the afterlife and eternity is completely different. They may have inner thoughts about one another, but that's different. Politics has always been very similar. You may have a left or a right viewpoint, but you can generally say, well, we disagree, I think your viewpoint's kind of stupid, but cool, man, I'll see you tomorrow. Now science has been added to that list. We're disagreeing on whether, scientists, for example, and I'm not saying that it's not a warranted issue, because much of science has been hijacked by groups trying to, let's just say, doing a vaccine test, and they find out that 50 of them cause, some sort of a damage or neurological symptoms. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer, don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying. Let's say a new vaccine is rushed through, there will be people who will say, oh, this is good enough, and others who will disagree on it. But really, it often does come down to money, and people fear that there's an inner motive for anything people do these days. And that's what it's come down to. We can't trust one another anymore, to be honest. And that got me thinking about truth being dead, and I refuse to admit that. I refuse to admit that at one point in the future we might be able to actually agree on some basic truths. And we have a complete denial of facts, about many different subjects. And I call it a choose your own adventure world right now. There is no humility, and there is no interest in a person coming to finding common ground. It's about proving yourself. It's about you being right and everybody else being wrong. And everybody expects that of one another right now. And therefore, we trust nobody. If I were to go by, like, for example, the changing viewpoints in the way that we view what we need to do as a society, maybe it is political, let's say. What's going on in Portland right now, which is right across the bridge, and a lot of you know I went down there the second night to film these protests on June 2nd. It's been, 80 days now, and now it's turned into a complete lunacy. And I'm more than willing to adjust the way that I think to realize that, okay, now people are just burning shit and they're not making the point that they wanted to make. And then I have to admit that maybe many of them are making the point that they wanted to make. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people are unhappy with the way the world works, the way the system works, the way they're treated, that they have been treated, and therefore they refuse to compromise or work through it. Because, and perhaps with good reason as well, a lot of folks, the argument is, well, if you don't like the way things are, then vote against it. Come on, we all know better. The way that districts are drawn and the way that votes are, lost, or, ballot stations magically disappear, because in certain areas, the system is rigged against most of us. And keeping the people divided between religious beliefs, political beliefs, or scientific beliefs. I don't know. I feel like everything's cast under the same shadow. That science, for example, the science of wearing a mask to prevent your own droplets from leaving your mouth. It's a very simple concept. It's nothing new. I mean, even the people who are anti-mask will admit that, yes, doctors have worn masks for a long time, at the very least to prevent their own droplets from going into a wound or sickening the patient. Therefore, they must have some efficacy. Yet there are still people out there who will say masks do absolutely nothing, that they make you sick, that they deprive you of oxygen, they kill you, etc. Now, if you're one of those people, I'm not here to argue about it. That's not my point. I'm just here to say, common sense and science and history show me that masks have at least some value. So why argue further, right? And right now what we have going on is a pandemic, which people are losing faith in everything, in one another. They don't trust science. They don't trust their leaders. They don't trust anybody. A lot of people do trust every word their leader says, for example, or their representative, I won't even get into the issues with the president, because that opens up this Pandora's box where people cannot have a civil discussion without getting mad. There will always be somebody, when I mention that will just say, MAGA 2020. That's about the extent of the conversation for a lot of people. Good for you. I don't care really who's president. I'm not a Biden fan. I'm not a political person. But today, if I even speak about politics or any political person, there's always somebody who's going to call me a CNN watcher, or, turn off the cable and turn off the network news. And I canceled cable 10 years ago. I don't watch mainstream news. I get my information through many sources, but I still realize that it's flawed often. And I look back on the things that I learned and think, okay, maybe I was a little overzealous here and I wasn't quite sure of the details. Which, for example, I respect a protest, but I don't respect destroying each other's property, especially businesses. But often those two things are not one and the same. Everything is getting skewed by the media, and I really don't even want to get too deep into that one, but we all know that the media is full of shit, and all they're out for is money. They just want to sell as many ads as they can and get the revenue they can. They don't want to talk about the real big issues, the controversial things, because that would, unless they're forced to, like in this case, where they have to cover the protests because otherwise they get left behind, right? And on top of all the bullshit out there and the lies and the money that's being made, there's a lot of disinformation just for money. And it's pretty sad. You can't help but wonder why so many people are willing to buy into this premise that money is more important than people. As a species, we take care of one another, but I guess there are a lot of crappy people out there who just don't care. and also a lot of good people who just see that some crappy people aren't worth taking care of. We have a lot of complicated systems out there, like the prison industrial complex, where we've got all these private corporations owning the prisons. We have more people per capita in prison than anywhere in the world, by far, and yet the way we remedy that, or in any type of putting people back out into society and helping them recover, it's completely nothing. I mean, our treatment programs are horrible. We as Americans don't take care of each other, so we get in these battles about what it means to be an American. If you have enough to take care of yourself, let's say you make, $1 million a year, you're not going to really worry about these things. Like, if you can go to the dentist tomorrow and just fix your teeth when you have a problem, if you can go to the doctor and afford a $10,000 bill for some checkups and tests, or just afford to pay $100,000 a year, or for 10 years of insurance, I mean, it really adds up, then you're one of the lucky ones. But the reason why so many people don't trust anymore is because they've been lied to for a long time by those who say, just work hard and you'll get ahead. You'll be better off. You'll be fine. Just start your own business, which can help. But then these laws get passed that, consolidate and force small businesses out. Sorry, I got a little off track there, but that's what I do, right? What we want to believe, we focus on. That's the point I'm trying to make here. What we think is important is what people are going to tweet or post about, and what other people find important doesn't matter at all. Let me give you the most extreme example I can think of. Scientology off the top. Scientology is absolutely absurd. So many documentaries have been made about it. You know that the people at the church are completely not, I'm not going to say they're insane. Many of them know exactly what they're doing. It's that they have found something that they can attach to, and many of them, I guess, must be insane. But the ones that follow people around, they're called squirrel busters. It's this group of people who, anybody who leaves the church, they go around and they harass them for years on end, especially if you speak against the church. And they are so creepy. That's the only word I can think of it, is that Scientology is a very creepy belief system. But the point is that many educated and famous people fall for it. And that should tell people it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter if you have an Ivy League education or you're exposed to a whole lot of amazing people that you think are great. They're going to lead you often into traps like that. Something so absurd that if you believe it without questioning it, you've basically handed over your brain to a cult. Well, is Scientology really any different than nationalism indoctrination? The idea that you have to stand behind everything your country does no matter what. This idea, especially from years ago about the war, where they'd say, where I was opposed to the Iraq war, and other people would say, you don't support your soldiers, you can leave the country. I'd be like, that's a pathetic, pathetic argument. I support the soldiers as people. I don't support the U.S.'s government's decision to send them into a war zone to kill them with depleted uranium shells and of course they're going to have suicide bombers. I mean, that's their last resort. It's a crazy world out there, and it's hard to see it from both sides. To see that the U.S. maybe was taking a dictator out, or maybe they were after oil. And God damn it, I didn't want to get into that. But I'm almost done here. A couple more points I want to make, I guess. Basically, we demonize the other today. There's no discussion. It's not even open for a debate. If I tell you I'm a liberal, for example, and I am liberal-minded, but I don't call myself a liberal. I'm maybe a classic liberal. I believe in the individual, independent freedom of each person. I believe in minimal government to interfere, and minimal bureaucracy and paperwork and bullshit. I do understand taxes, but when the taxes don't represent the people anymore and they all go to military, that's when I start to say, hey, this is a waste of my effort and work. We're all laboring in order to fight in other countries right now. And I'm asking you where the return is on that. So that's what I mean. But the truth gets covered up, and therefore people can't see what's really going on. And if you don't dig deep enough, you don't see that truth. I'd just like to finalize by saying we have more in common than differences. Something I always say after videos like this. And an interesting thing about this COVID experience is, you know, in times of chaos, and I like to say it's not just about COVID. COVID will be over within a year. There will be a new virus, or an asteroid impact, or a solar flare, or a nuclear explosion somewhere that sets off a chain reaction. Anything can happen. What happened in Beirut, you know, and the fallout after that, that's happening right now, is showing, you know, just how unstable all regions are. I mean, they were already in protests and chaos before this. Now they're really pissed because their government's incompetence. Now imagine when, you know, one of the U.S. facilities blows up. I mean, the world is a powder keg right now. You can't deny that. All of us know what's going on right now if you're paying attention at all. And a lot of us don't agree on why or how to deal with it, or, you know, but it's okay. Because we have to speak to one another in rational, calm tones and talk about these things. Because fighting and calling people names, and it's just not solving anything, and it never has. And it's become so much worse. We have to listen to people because, you know, fear breeds anger and violence in people. And life is not a straight line. It's ups and downs. So what I believed 10 years ago, I don't believe today, but maybe I will believe in 10 years. You have to be open to experience. We have to look deeper at where these social constructs come from and dissect them so we can better live in our karma, if you will, which in our dharma, I guess, our life path, which is the next subject of the next video I'm going to do. But what I wanted to say was times of chaos are supposed to bring us together. And in this case, they're not because of the division tactics. And stress, when we're all stressed out, it equals conspiracy theories, and that leads down a dark rabbit hole. And there's no rabbit at the bottom. There's no payoff. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for listening, everybody. Peace out. Try to get along with one another, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. Later.